The final competition was held on Sunday, and with the end of it, the class competition was officially over. Many memorable moments at the competition were later immortalized into a photo. After the busy event ended, Hajin was finally able to enjoy a peaceful time with Evangel after a long time. Hajin smiled to see Evangel eating the fried chicken he bought so ravenously. But he was then surprised when he suddenly heard a notification sound from his notebook. He turned out to get an email from the Geronimo Mercenary Company. When he opened the email, he then saw a message containing a mission. It was an apprentice mercenary mission with difficulty level D, and a reward of 300 million won or items of the same price. The purpose of the mission was to kill Siemens, the closest aide of the Korean Mafia's Torino branch leader. Siemens had committed many crimes such as murder, rape, intimidation, and human trafficking. His fame had spread throughout the Turin region. There were also rumors that he was a jinn. Reading that, Hajin was quite surprised to get an assassination mission targeting the Italian Mafia. The Italian Mafia thrived during the outcall, taking advantage of the weakened government control. They've got a robust system and are very united, so they're starting to look like a nation by themselves. Korean is a group that is directly involved in the middle part of the main story. Hajin estimates that the aide of the branch leader should be around low grade, grade 1 to 2. Hajin is a bit speechless getting a mission like this. He did agree to a test from the Chameleon Troupe so that he could write his own story, but, isn't this mission too difficult for an apprentice mercenary? He was also confused. Is this really a mission with difficulty level D? Putting that aside, Hajin then focused back on the mission. In the email it was mentioned that the target of the mission was likely to be a jinn. Hajin was somewhat relieved to know that. He thought he might feel less guilty if he killed a jinn. While Hajin was immersed in his thoughts, he was then startled by the voice of Evangel who suddenly called him. He then immediately asked, "What's wrong?" With the remaining food stuck to her face, Evangel then asked, "Can I eat one more?" That little girl actually ate an entire container of fried chicken without realizing it, but Hajin didn't forbid it. He told her to eat as much as she wanted. Evangel was happy to hear that. She then went back to eating her food while humming a song. Hajin decided not to start his mission in a hurry, and planned to make preparations first. Hajin then opened his status window, to the Constitution menu. In this world, Constitution refers to something that has been born. This is the same as talent. There are various kinds of Constitution such as extraordinary recovery, great control over mana, and superb digestion. You can think of these as body talents, and the Constitution that Hajin wrote is, body that can't use mana. With this Constitution, he can only hold mana in his body and can't take it out, but instead, the mana accumulated in his body will not disappear, but will become vitality and will accumulate in his body. The accumulated vitality can be used to increase her physical stat twice, and he can use vitality instead of stamina when moving. The conclusion is, the restriction of being unable to use mana with the body that can't use mana, enables the positive effect of having vitality constitution. Ordinary people would say that this constitution was the worst, but from the beginning Hajin couldn't use mana, so he didn't suffer any disadvantage from this. The mana from the stigma was different from the mana from the physical body. Vitality substitution didn't have lasting practicality, but it could withstand ambushes that would cause instant death. While looking at the status window, Hajin felt that this was the best for a low-level hero like him to survive in the main story. Body that can't use mana requires 500 SP to write. Hajin was surprised and happy to read that the use of SP was not too much. He felt that maybe it was because the restriction was very large. Without any hesitation, Hajin then confirmed it. Right at that moment, various system screens then appeared in front of him. The special stat, accumulation of luck, was activated. Golden letters began to flood to form sentences. Shortly after, a system screen containing the explanation of a skill then appeared in front of him. When calamities become blessings, there is a possibility that a small amount of accumulated vitality can permanently increase the stat. The possibility of increasing the stat is influenced by a stat of non-variable type, luck. Hajin was surprised to find out that it can increase the stat permanently, even if it is only a little. This is still a free stat boost, right? Hajin was amazed by it. He would feel happy even if he only got a 0.0001 stat increase per day. With a feeling of excitement that enveloped his heart, Hajin then cheered that this was amazing. Seeing him who suddenly became noisy, Evangel then annoyingly reminded him, "We shouldn't talk while eating." Hajin laughed awkwardly at that. He then apologized to her. The next day, Hajin went to pick up the obsidian bracelet that he had entrusted to the Soul Magic Tower. Hajin seemed to be quite satisfied with the result. There were two magic aspects that Hajin ordered to be implanted into the bracelet. The first was damage absorption. It filled up automatically when the user received an attack. The attack would be converted into mana and stored in the bracelet. When the bracelet was exposed to the air, it would slowly fill up the mana. The second was intermediate enhanced magic power, has the effect of consuming mana to fire enhanced magic power to the user's desired location. The size of the enhanced magic power and damage absorption depends on the amount of mana stored at the time of taking the bracelet. Jin at that time explained to him, enhanced magic power is something that you can only use once in a lifetime, so he asked him to please use it only when he really needs it. Hearing that, Hajin felt relieved, because he felt that the mage who carved the runes on this bracelet did not know about its automatic charging function if he said so. He also felt that Jin was quite honest, unlike his first impression of him. Hajin could only laugh when remembering that. He then thought of introducing him to Yona when she set up the magic tower later. While Hajin was immersed in his thoughts, someone suddenly called his name. Hearing that, Hajin then immediately turned his head towards him. It was a familiar voice to him. The person who called him turned out to be Park Suhyuk. Park Suhyuk apologized to him. He asked, "Have you been waiting for a long time?" He then invited him to go to the office immediately. After a while, the two of them then arrived at the office. Hajin looked amazed at them. Look inside the office. Seeing that, Park Suhyuk asked him, "It's getting a lot better, right?" Park Suhyuk explained, "They already have 11 employees. He also has 5 exclusive hunter contracts." He also said that the office was an investment from Yona. Hearing that, Hajin said that this looked great. After explaining all that to him, Park Suhyuk then led him to a room. In the room, there was a sport bike parked there. This was what Hajin had asked him before. Hajin exclaimed in amazement. Looking at the motorcycle, Hajin looked very satisfied with the appearance of the motorcycle. The body was shiny. Seeing that, Park Suhyuk asked, "It's not bad, right? It's not an ordinary sport bike. It has the name Augusta Vigilante. It is equipped with a vehicle frame made with advanced magic power. The weight can be reduced while the reinforcement is maintained. The weight of the vehicle frame has been reduced to increase speed, and reinforcement is done to compensate for the fragility caused by it has been maintained. The user can also temporarily increase the speed of the motorcycle by burning mana." Reading that, Hajin thought, "No wonder this is so expensive." He then thanked Park Suhyuk for getting this for him. Hearing that, Park Suhyuk happily said that this was not a problem. He asked him to just let him know if he needed anything. Although he was also aware that he would not be able to fulfill everything he wanted, but the bag carried by Hajin suddenly shook at this time. Seeing that, Park Suhyuk confusedly asked, "What is it?" His question was then answered shortly after. He was then surprised and confused when he saw a puppy coming out of Hajin's bag. The puppy's appearance was really very cute. Park Suhyuk even felt adorable when he saw it. He asked, "Why do you have a puppy?" Hearing that, Hajin only said that he had just gotten it. Park Suhyuk was quite confused at his answer. "It's like it's not him." Hajin could only laugh awkwardly at that, but Park Suhyuk's phone suddenly rang at this time. He then asked Hajin to wait for a while. He had a call, but when he returned, he then told Hajin that he thought he had to go now. There was something he needed to attend. Hajin didn't really mind that. He said that he was also done here. Hajin thanked him for today. He said he would stop by again next time. Park Suhyuk understood. He then said goodbye to him. He also said to the puppy that Hajin brought that he would see her again later. The puppy then barked when she heard that. As Park Suhyuk left there, Hajin then with a feeling of anticipation looked at the sport bike parked there. He decided to try it right away. He took the puppy he was carrying to go somewhere without any prying eyes. After a while, the two of them then arrived at a place. Hajin had made sure that there were no CCTV around there. He had also added settings to the motorcycle. It cost a total of 100 SP. Hajin decided to test it. He named it Portability Activation. Right after that, the motorcycle beside him suddenly shrank, and turned into the shape of a suitcase. Although its shape had shrunk this time and became more flexible, but it was still quite heavy when he lifted it. Hajin estimated that it probably weighed more than 20 kilograms. Portability activation allows him to use Stigma's mana to compact an object into a suitcase. Hajin then looked at the puppy in the bag. He was sure it must be really stuffy in there. He thanked her for staying there. The puppy turned out to be Evangel, who was in disguise. she was bothering Hajin to take her because she wanted to visit Seoul. Hajin then asked her, then, should we go? Hearing that, Evangel confusedly asked, where? Hajin replied, eat something delicious. The city center in Seoul looked very crowded at this time with many people walking there. There was also Yona. She was currently walking with someone. The person told her to look carefully. In the future, all this land will belong to her. She is Jin Yojung, the Yona's mother, the real estate maestro. Hearing that, Yona then asked her not to worry. She had already thought about how she would utilize everything. Yojung was happy to see her daughter's confidence. She felt that her daughter was very reliable. She wondered why her father was so immature. He didn't even know how to invest. Hearing that, the guards behind her then thought, I guess even Jin Yong the berserker is just an ordinary husband at home. Hearing her mother's disappointed tone, Yona then said, he has gotten much better lately. Yojung just sighed hearing that, but Yona was then surprised when she suddenly heard a commotion behind her. They seemed to both be watching someone at the moment, and as Yona walked over, she was then surprised to see Hajin there. He was indeed wearing glasses, but she was sure it must be him. Putting that aside, she then looked at the direction that people were fussing about, seeing the evangel that Hajin was holding. At this time, she wondered, who was that kid? Yona was shocked to see that. It was like she got a new clue at this time. Yona thought that she had to find out about it. She was then about to call Hajin and approach him, but her hand was suddenly held by her mother at this time. Her mother asked, where are you going? We have to visit the tenants of our buildings now. Yona was a bit surprised by her mother's sudden action. She then said there was something urgent she had to do, but her mother didn't let her go. She said she had to stay here. She would inherit all this later. Yona really didn't know what to do at the moment. She then felt anxious when she saw Hajin walking further away. Yojung said they were too late. While dragging her, she then took her daughter to leave. Yona really felt helpless at the moment. She felt that she really had to check on that. After walking for a while, the two of them then arrived at a restaurant. Evangel was seen eating her food with gusto. The people around her looked adorable with her cuteness. Seeing her expression, Hajin then asked, does it taste good? Is there anything else I want to cut? Hearing that, Evangel then replied, onions. Evangel really enjoyed the food. It felt very delicious in her mouth. Evangel was then about to eat her food again, but her movement suddenly stopped when Hajin asked her, do you think you can independently pass this Sunday alone? Hearing that, Evangel then confusedly looked at Hajin. Seeing her who stopped eating, Hajin then felt panic. He realized that she was going to cry. He then immediately calmed her down. He promised to buy all the toys she wanted today. He asked her to just say if she wanted something, but Evangel replied listlessly when she heard that. Hajin was really confused about what to do at this time. He couldn't bear to see her depressed like that. In his moment of confusion, a waiter then came. He came with their order, tomahawk steak. Evangel's eyes lit up when she saw the dish. She then enthusiastically told Hajin to cut it immediately. Hajin was speechless seeing that. His worries seemed to be in vain. After the two of them finished eating, Hajin then took Evangel for a walk to buy toys as he had promised. Hajin asked, what toys do you want? Evangel replied that she wanted puzzles and Legos, but when the two of them were walking to the toy store, Evangel suddenly saw something. Looking at Evangel who suddenly stopped walking, Hajin then confusedly asked, what's wrong? The reason Evangel suddenly stopped walking turned out to be because she saw a kitten at this time. She looked adorable with the kitten's cuteness. Hajin was quite confused to see that. He was confused why there was a cat in a place like this. Evangel then called Hajin while tugging on his sleeve. She said that she wanted to play with Whitey. Hearing that, Hajin then asked, was that its name? Evangel confirmed it. Hajin didn't mind it at all. He also felt that the cat was really cute. With the dorm room where he lived now, he could keep one cat. He also always wanted to raise a pet, but Hajin didn't agree to it just like that. He then asked her, what will happen to your spirit friends if you keep this cat? The cat might fight with them. Hearing that, Evangel confidently said that she would make sure they wouldn't fight. Hearing that, Hajin then showed his little finger to her and told her to promise him. Seeing that, Evangel then wrapped her little finger around his little finger and said that she promised, but Whitey didn't seem to be an obedient cat. Seeing Whitey biting her doll, Evangel then immediately scolded it. This was the day when Hajin was about to leave. Right before he left, he then told Evangel that he would be back soon. He also reminded her again that she must make sure not to fight with Whitey, but Evangel seemed to completely ignore him. she was busy scolding Whitey at this time. Hajin really felt helpless seeing that, she treated him as if he didn't exist. Even so, Hajin felt better this way, he could leave her with peace of mind. Time passed, he was now in Turin, looking at the passport in his hand. Hajin was quite nervous at first because this was a fake passport, but he managed to enter without any problems. He guessed the chameleon troupe was indeed this good. As Hajin observed the surroundings, he had a slightly strange feeling. In the novel he wrote, "Italy is a unique country, one of the main reasons is because there is a mafia. Based on the plot of the world, they are slightly different from the existing criminal groups, they look like they are hostile to the government, but they always work together when monsters appear, they form guilds and can run their business at night and day, they live by following the boundaries of the law, at least for now, although sometimes there are bastards who take advantage of that power. The Korean mafia, where his target is located, is the strongest mafia group among other mafias, and he has to kill one of their members." Hajin can only sigh in frustration thinking about it. To be honest, he feels there is a possibility that this mission even comes from the internal Korean mafia itself. While Hajin is immersed in his thoughts, someone suddenly called him. It was a voice that was quite familiar to Hajin. He then surprisingly turned his head towards the person. The person turned out to be the boss. After that, Hajin then turned his suitcase back into a motorcycle. The boss looked amazed at that. Hajin then asked her, "Did you come to help me?" The boss replied no, she would not help him. Hearing that, Hajin confusedly asked, "Then, why are you here, what are you going to do now?" The boss was silent for a moment hearing that. She then replied, "I want to take a walk." There was still plenty of time. She then took Hajin for a walk around Turin. Hajin could only be stunned to hear that. Meanwhile at the cube, Nayun was tired at the moment. She seemed to have been training with Soho. Seeing Nayun who lay limply on the floor, Soho felt it was natural, because they had been sparring since the end of class. Seeing Yona who was just silent as if she was thinking about something, Nayun then asked her, "Why don't you spar?" But Yona was just silent at her question. She was still thinking about the little girl who was with Hajin yesterday. She was very curious about who that little girl was. Nayun then got annoyed to see her ignoring her, but Yona still did not respond. She thought it was impossible for Hajin to have a child at that age. She wondered, could it be his niece? But she immediately denied the conjecture. She felt it was impossible, considering Hajin was an orphan. She also did not find out about his relatives in her investigation. Seeing Yona immersed in her thoughts, Nayun then irritably asked, "What were you thinking about earlier? Were you rejected by Jonghak or what?" Her question seemed to have triggered Yona. Nayun was right, because Yona had been rejected by Jonghak when she asked to study together. Yona then immediately replied with sharp words. She said that Hajin said she hated her. Nayun gasped at that. She was also surprised by her sudden words. Soho was the same. She then asked her, "Are you serious?" Yona smiled faintly. She confirmed it. The rumor had spread widely in the academy. She also said, "If I were Hajin, I would also prefer Rachel over Nayun." Nayun then felt annoyed hearing that. She was upset to see Yona continue the topic. Seeing that, Yona then asked her, "Why are you angry? Didn't you say you hated him?" Nayun gasped at that. The atmosphere suddenly became tense at this time, with Nayun and Yona both silent without saying anything, and Soho who was in the middle of them, could only feel confused. Soho then immediately asked the two of them, "Why did you suddenly fight?" But Nayun ignored his question, and just walked away from there. Seeing that, Soho then confusedly asked her, "Where are you going?" Soho was really confused by the atmosphere between the two of them. Why did they fight, even though their relationship was fine just now? Meanwhile in Turin, Hajin was riding his motorcycle while carrying Boss at this time. They seem to have been traveling around Turin. Hajin was quite confused by the boss's thoughts at this time. He wondered, did she really just want to go for a ride? But, the boss suddenly said to him, "There will be a gathering at 9 p.m. Hajin was surprised to hear that. He knew it was a clue for this apprentice mercenary mission. The boss explained, "The location is at the Leoran mansion in Turin. The target is the organizer of this gathering, and there is an abandoned church in the forest near the mansion." Hearing that, Hajin then opened his smartwatch and started navigation to the address. The boss continued, "The top of the church is very high. It is a perfect place for a sniper." A few moments later, they then arrived at the abandoned church that the boss mentioned earlier. Seeing the vines covering the walls of the church, Hajin wondered, how long had this church been abandoned? Hajin then immediately climbed the walls of the abandoned church to get to the top. The boss seemed to be quite surprised by his sudden action. When he got to the top, Hajin then saw a luxurious mansion not far from there. He wondered, that was the mansion, right? He also felt that this was indeed the perfect place as the boss said. The boss then asked him, "Can I watch over you while you carry out the mission?" But Hajin said that it was a little uncomfortable, so he then asked her to leave. The boss could only be silent hearing that. Seeing that, Hajin then once again asked her to leave there right now. The boss understood. She then walked away from there. Hajin stared at her departure for a moment. After the boss disappeared from his sight, Hajin then refocused on his mission. He activated the 1,000-mile eyes and observed the mansion from a distance. He estimated the distance of the mansion to be approximately 1 kilometer from his current location. This is the distance that a hero can reach within 30 seconds, taking into account the time when they understand the situation and find his location. He only has 1 minute to escape. After further observation, he also vaguely sensed the existence of a mana barrier around the mansion. He was grateful that the barrier was still weak because the event had not yet started. Seeing that the time had already shown 8:35 p.m., Hajin thought she should start getting ready. After that, Hajin then took out his sniper rifle from Stigma's mana. Not only that, he also used Identify to strengthen the sniper as well as the bullets, but the rifle was only strengthened by 25%, while the bullets were only strengthened by 22%. Seeing that, Hajin felt that his luck was not good today. But he didn't mind that much. He would use Stigma's mana to strengthen the enhanced bullet with anti-demon properties. To get rid of all the evidence, he also had to make the bullet perish after penetrating the target. In other words, he didn't have to worry about mission failure. With his finger on the trigger of the rifle, Hajin thought, "I will kill him in one shot."